Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to Peace Fund with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.
Good morning. That's how my life is this morning.
That's a man in control right there, ladies and gentlemen.
Can you hear it?
That's a man in control.
Good morning, everybody. How are you? Ethan, how are you this morning?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm just like running at a mile a minute at the moment.
Hey, doing good work and saving the world takes effort, my friend.
Yeah,
so
I
it's
know.
a busy time for Peaceful Radio.
I know. It's
good thing you're up for the task, apparently.
Well, it's been a hectic couple of weeks where we're really sort of putting together this Peace Fund poker event, which is coming together very nicely.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's a week from Saturday, October 11th. So those of you that haven't registered, register. We've got a lot of celebs, food, music at the Microsoft facility down in Playa del Rey. They're hosting it for us. There'll be Xbox games that you can check out, the new Microsoft products you can check out. There'll be fun games actually for players to use if they want to have their friends and family support them, so that their friends and family can actually make them wear things, and we can Twitter and post it on Facebook.
Within reason, apparently, as we discovered last week when I tried to make you wear a clown suit. But
yes, because I can't do that to the celebrities. If they wish to do it, they can be asked to do it, and therefore, if they're willing to do it and have a photo put out,
it's all for a good cause.
Exactly. There you go.
I have a quick question. We were talking a moment ago at the start of the show about how this show is licensed, if you will, out to different radio networks and such, and some of the listeners get back from the colleges that play us with questions for you. So if some of them are listening now, how can they, in another city or town, get involved and support the poker tournament?
Well, the great part about that is online, and
where exactly?
If you go to www.peacefundpoker.org, you'll find the way you can actually sponsor a player, either by a flat donation or sponsor them through the tournament as they go through a level, or whether they go through how many places they stay in the tournament. On top of that, you can also have more fun with it by actually going to the Accessorize Me page, which actually allows you to accessorize a player, not a celebrity. You can request it. I'm not sure whether they will accept it, but as players, if you know a player that's going to be in it, you can actually get them to say, I want you to wear this outfit or this thing, and then we will take it on our Twitter and our Facebook pages, which we will have live at the show. We will have live updates as the games are going on, so you can actually watch it live on the updates that we'll have on our Facebook and Twitter pages.
Let me follow that question up with a quick part two, because I think people need to know it. As you know, this show's expanded into a lot of different markets and a lot of different carriers. So people in other countries, people in other cities, they can go online anytime between now and the event. If they hear this show, let's say in a Thursday repeat or a Saturday morning repeat somewhere else in the country, they can still go to that link. They can still get involved up to the date of the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And the great thing about it is that if you donate $100 or more, your face will actually be on the page that you've supported. Okay, good. If you've got a company logo on a celebrity's page, it's $300. On a personal page, it's $100. We can actually get your company logo on some of those for very, very low dollar amounts that will be viewed by many, many people. We just actually yesterday I was over at CBS Radio. They posted it on all their sites. We have a huge social media campaign of 650,000 going out right now and early next week to people. So there's going to be a lot of press at the event. There's going to be a lot of celebrities at the event. So if you want your face and your logos attached to that, you can actually get it online at peacefundpoker.org. So that's what it takes. A lot of this stuff. I mean, I'm like, wow, this is a lot of.
And you've got two high-profile events almost back-to-back.
Yeah, well, the other one is Peace Fund Games, which, is coming in. We've just signed the contracts yesterday. So now we'll be up on the Camp Pendleton paintball website within the next 2 days, probably.
Brilliant.
And at that point, we've already got sponsors clamoring at us, actually, because we are hoping to be getting some great celebrities. We already have some really cool ones, but I'm going to release those in another couple of weeks. But you can actually see a lot of the stuff happening at Peace Fund Games after this poker event. Will be really
December 6th and 7th.
December 6th and 7th. And I know Ethan's upset about that.
No. Well, let me clarify, because there was some talk about this. I'm upset that because of those dates, I can't attend and support it.
I know.
Because
I know,
seen,
dude. I'm just giving you grief.
I've seen what has gone into this for many, many months, and it almost seems shameful that I cannot be there to help in some small way and make it work. That's the biggest complaint. I'm going to try to make it on that Sunday. Our Christmas breakfast is December 6th, but what people are confused about is our event is a closed to the public event anyway.
Right.
Unless you're volunteering or working it.
Right.
So it's not like a question of like, it's the same day, how could you? It's the same day, how could you? Because now I can't go. So it's actually a little bit more shameless. But I'm actually hearing a lot of excitement about it. You know, it's funny. I was looking at the social media feed at Combat Radio, and I was seeing a lot of people who've heard this show in places in cities in Mexico and cities in Texas and cities in Arizona that can make it over to San Diego and maybe get involved. So it's nice to see that the interest is there, and we all know that the Peace Fund, which has something like a 94% give back on the grid, which is amazing. 94% of what's raised will go to the charities involved. And that's the real thing, is that I've actually suffered through this event with you for many, many months now, and it seems almost painfully comical that I won't be there for it.
I know. No.
I've had to deal with it.
I'm going to have to.
Probably more
you know
than
what I'm going to have to do?
I'm
going to have to do a pop-up version of you and put you there, and maybe do a live feed for you or something.
I think I could do that, or like for the targets.
Exactly. You know what? Actually, this actual event is going to be. As I mentioned before, the reason why when you move a location, we had to move a location for some logistical reasons, but we have gone onto this location, which will allow us to do certain other things. We're actually contemplating a 2-day event that's going to have a lot more fun stuff the first day, because there's a lot of stuff for kids. It's really all for the Peace Fund Games is absolutely for everybody. It's for the kids. It's for people that have never played it before. It's for professionals. It's for anybody, because we're going to have games for kids. We're going to have laser tag for kids. We're going to have paintball for kids. We're going to have a trade show. We're going to have paintball challenges that you can do. Even if you haven't done it, running and firing something might just be good enough, rather than actually doing the 2-on-2 event. So we've got a lot of different challenges and events that's going to actually be able to allow a lot of different people to participate. And then on the second day, there's the main paintball scenario game, which is going to be the one where everybody's going after the final prize, which is the tournament trophy.
I think that's exciting to have a trophy process plus all the interactive ways to get people involved. So I think this is going to be an exciting.
Well, this is what Peace Fund Poker is actually doing. That we've created a real kind of interactive portion. It will be the initial start to our interactive portion of Peace Fund Games. Peace Fund Games will be a little bit more widely interactive, but Peace Fund Poker will start the structure for us so that we can actually slip it into Peace Fund Games on the website. What day is the poker tournament? Poker tournament is October 11th, which is a week on Saturday.
Yeah, that's
coming
Saturday.
up really quick.
What time is it at?
It's registration. You go to register on peacefundpoker.org, and you turn up around 11, 12. Game starts at 1 o'clock sharp, and that's we'll have our red carpet starts at 11:30 to 12:30. 11:30 to 12:30. Man, very exciting. All right. You can come with as Combat Radio too, as one of the press. Well, I'm happy. I might even invite you. We weren't really actually clear on that. Maybe I should ask. Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm not really one to really care if I'm invited or not when I turn up, if I want to be somewhere. But so is there no invitation made out to me? Is that what you're saying? Well, let's put it like this. You're on the Peace Fund Advisory Committee, so all Peace Fund. So let me advise you to have me there. I'm advising. Let me advise you to get that invitation in the mail. Let me fulfill my role and advise you to have somebody who may have something to do with this show. Okay, can I run it by the board?
Yeah, run it by the board.
Okay.
In that case, I've got a day off, sounds like. The rest of the board needs to approve it. I'll be probably playing golf. But red carpet from 11:30 to...
12:30, and the game starts at 1 o'clock. So everybody will be turning up between 11 and 1. There you go.
Probably do have some press contacts that would want to cover that now that I'm thinking.
Yeah. Anyway, we are... A news update, ladies and gentlemen. In the news, Ebola outbreak, thousands of orphans being shunned. At least 3,700 children in Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone have lost one or both parents to Ebola this year. Facing being shunned, the UN said. Care is urgently needed for these orphans. A basic human reaction like comforting a sick child has been turned into a potential death sentence. The number of... how do you say it? Ebola?
Ebola is how it's pronounced here, but I'm not sure. I don't know if that's a Western pronunciation or if that's the actual pronunciation.
It's interesting. The number of Ebola orphans has spiked in the past few weeks, and preliminary reports suggest that it is likely to double by mid-October. The World Health Organization says more than 3,000 people have died in West Africa, the world's most deadly outbreak of the virus. The disease is orphaning children as young as 3 or 4 years old. Children were discovered alone in hospitals where parents had died, or back in their communities where, if they were lucky, they were being fed by neighbours, but all other contact with them was being avoided. These children urgently need special attention and support, yet many of them feel unwanted and even abandoned. Orphans are usually taken in by a member of the extended family, but in some communities the fear surrounding Ebola is becoming stronger than family ties. Despite massive promises of aid in recent weeks, many areas have grossly inadequate resources. And the funny thing is, Peace Fund Poker is actually supporting Wells Bring Hope in Niger, West Africa. Clean water is also another one of the reasons I think some of these diseases are being stopped from spreading. Ways to help. America Cares, www.americacares.org. UNICEF, of course, UNICEF.USA.org, and doctorswithoutborders.org. So let's just talk about some of the things that surround this, since this seems to be the topic of immunisation. Did you have your kids immunised when
I did.
When they were younger? Because it's an interesting topic, because some people don't. It depends. Yes, immunisation saves lives. I mean, last century diseases like whooping cough, polio, measles, influenza and rubella struck hundreds of thousands of infants and adults in the US, but thousands die from it every year, or died from them every year. As vaccines were developed and became widely used, rates of these diseases declined until today. Most of them are nearly gone from our country. Now, that's an interesting comment, because some of them are still being vaccinated for, which my suggestion or advice when you have a very young child is see what they are being vaccinated for, because otherwise you're just paying for a vaccine that really doesn't mean anything. I know and also how the vaccine is administered. When children are brought into hospitals, when my pediatrician said there's a I believe it's vitamin K, which is injected into the foot of a baby. Most hospitals do this, but there is also an oral application. Imagine you're in the womb for 9 months, nice and safe, nice and warm. You come out, the world is screaming at you, everything's different. Then somebody pricks you in the foot. You're not going to be too happy about that. So there are other ways to allow that. Check it out, because there are oral applications of some of these immunization applications, and just check out what your child is getting, rather than the doctor saying, "No, don't worry, you can just have them all." I'm not a great believer in that. But in the US, before there was a vaccine, nearly everyone got measles, and hundreds died from it each year. Today, doctors have never seen a case of measles. Most doctors haven't. More than 15,000 Americans died from diphtheria in 1921. Before there was a vaccine, only one case of diphtheria has been reported to the CDC since 2004. An epidemic of rubella, German measles, in 1964-65 infected 12.5 million Americans, killed 2,000 babies, and caused 11,000 miscarriages. In 2012, 9 cases of rubella were reported to the CDC. So, as these things disappear, the vaccination for them is not as necessary. I think you should be very aware and get yourself informed as to what these vaccines are. However, vaccines don't just protect yourself. Do you get vaccinated against stuff?
Yeah, in fact, I just actually, oddly enough, had a physical in preparation for a possible charity soccer game coming up, and they gave me a shot for tetanus, a tetanus shot that they said had a vaccine in it for whooping cough because it was going around. And so now it seems like they're...
Whooping cough's going around?
Well, that's what the doctor said, and he was stacking it. Now, I don't know if that's the whooping cough lobbyist in Washington that's getting everyone to put the whooping cough serum.
Yeah.
I really don't know. But I'm going to just assume that, it's genuine. It's coming from my doctor. And so I got both tetanus shot and whooping cough in one shot.
You know what was really funny? My father-in-law, when we had the kids, they're like, "Oh, you've got to vaccinate from this. You've got to vaccinate the flu, and you've got to do this. You've got to." Well, we didn't vaccinate against the flu that year, and he did,
and he got it,
and he got the flu.
Well, I don't take a flu shot for that reason because they say it triggers the flu.
It triggers it. Yeah, sometimes so it can be.
There's some things like you're citing very good things to vaccinate against. I don't think you should vaccinate for the common elements. That I think that's part of building up your immunity system personally. Mm-hmm. So I'm on the fence about it. My doctor tended to actually agree with that assessment that, you don't have to vaccinate for everything. You're probably going to create more problems for yourself.
Yeah, but again, you're dealing with a situation where doctors have what they have been taught. They have been taught a certain way, and some of them are going to be very strict on the way that they adhere to those guidelines.
Right.
And some of them are going to be a little bit more open to new methods because doctors really are being paid to be doctors. They're not being paid to not be doctors and give you alternative medicines that go elsewhere. So let's be straight about this. There are different ways you should inform yourself is what I'm saying. I'm not saying negate it totally, but inform yourselves because I think you have to do that.
Right.
If one person in a community gets an infectious disease, it can spread to others who are not immune. But a person who is immune to a disease, because she has been vaccinated, he or she has been vaccinated, can't get that disease and can't spread it to others. So there is an importance to it. You've got to make up your own mind. This is right now. I'm not advocating one or the other. I'm just saying here are some of the facts, and go out there and think about it. If 1 or 2 cases of disease are introduced into a community where most people are not vaccinated, outbreaks will occur. In 2013, for example, several measles outbreaks occurred around the country, including large outbreaks in New York City and Texas. It's interesting because before they say most doctors have never seen a case of measles, but there was an outbreak, including large outbreaks in, as I said, New York and Texas, and among groups that were low in vaccination rates. If vaccination rates drop to low levels nationally, diseases could become as common as they were before vaccinations. Mm-hmm. So there's also the global picture. I mean, the United States has very low rates of vaccine preventable diseases, but this isn't true everywhere in the world. Only one disease, smallpox, has been totally erased from the planet. Polio no longer occurs in the US, but it is still paralyzing children in several African countries. More than 350,000 cases of measles were reported from around the world in 2011, with outbreaks in the Pacific, Asia, Africa, and Europe. In that same year, 90% of measles cases in the US were associated with cases imported from another country. Only the fact that most Americans are vaccinated against measles prevented these clusters of cases from becoming epidemics. I remember when I was a kid, I got measles when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. It's not pleasant. Really isn't pleasant. Small bumps. I remember I still remember, and I was probably, I think, about 8 years old at the time when I got it. 7, 8 years old. And my mother would put calamine lotion on me to stop the itching, and she almost poured it all over my body. And the minute she got out of the room, I'm like, no, it's still itching. It was horrible. But I remember, I'll tell you a funny story. I've got to tell you a funny story about this. My brother or somebody in the family got the measles. Somebody or my mother said it's going around. Mm-hmm. And it was Christmas time, I remember, because it was snowing outside. And it had just snowed, and I was just waiting to go out. And I'm like, hey, it's snowing, it's awesome, look at that.
Right.
And I went into the bathroom, and I looked down at my stomach, my shoulder, and I'm getting these little bumps. And I'm like, oh no, I think I got it. But I didn't tell my mother because I wanted to go and play in the snow.
So you went out and you got everyone infected.
So, no, I just played in the snow. I think it was in the back garden or something. But anyway, I'm 7 years old at the time. Afterwards, I went, Mom, I think I've got this. Well, in a few days, I was covered. So
You heard about this a reported case in Texas of Ebola, right?
No, what happened?
Yeah, earlier this week, someone back from Africa has been quarantined for Ebola here in the States. Yeah. So we're going to get a good test at what the CDC can actually do here very quickly.
Have you seen that show, The Strain?
No, but Doug Jones is on it, a mutual friend of ours.
What was Doug doing on it?
He's in the last episode. I don't know how much I can say anything about it. But
because I'm watching it at the moment. I like that show. But they talk about the CDC all in it. How about the Communication Center of Disease Control?
Well,
is that what it is?
It's always interesting to see how the CDC is portrayed in these movies.
Yeah, I mean, because they, there's a couple of bad people in it who are CDC people, and the hero is the CDC.
But there's also the WHO, which is a different organization.
Correct.
So, it depends on which zombie apocalypse movie you're watching. Sometimes they're very effective, sometimes not.
There's a couple of other shows coming back on, that I'm going to be watching. I'm actually going to miss Walking Dead because I'm going to be in Europe shooting Strike Back in a couple of weeks.
You'll be able to catch up on it.
Yeah, I know. So let's get back to immunization.
Yes.
It actually saves up to 3 million children each year. Vaccines do keep children alive and healthy by protecting them against disease. Immunization is especially important from the hardest to reach families, as it can also be a bridge to other life-saving care for mothers and children in isolated communities. Child nutrition screening, anti-malaria mosquito nets, vitamin A supplements, deworming tablets, all these things are actually very successful and cost-effective, and it can actually help for future generations. Again, my suggestion is also check as to what these are and how effective they are, and whether they are something that is actually needed for your child at this particular
How do you
moment.
make the decision?
I think you have to, again, I think that's your decision to make when you inform yourself. You have to go and say, okay, have there been any cases in my community, in my state at this particular time? Are we traveling anywhere? Because obviously a lot of the time when you travel to other countries, such as Africa, as we just discussed, you need to have some immunization shots. Mm-hmm. Mostly when you go to Mexico, when you go to Thailand, when you go to Philippines, or any of these other countries that may have... It doesn't matter what country you go to, ladies and gentlemen. I hate to tell you this, but bugs mutate. So bugs in Mexico, and you say, I'm going to get a bad bug in Mexico. No, everybody in Mexico are not necessarily getting that bug because they're already... Their bodies have built up an immunity to it. You haven't, so therefore going there sometimes can give you Montezuma's revenge. Who was Montezuma, by the way?
Montezuma? Are you seriously asking?
Yeah, who was Montezuma?
Montezuma was the king of either the Aztecs or the Mayans. The Aztecs, I think, here in Mexico.
I guess that's what it was all about. It was about all the Europeans getting there, and when they got down there, they got
It's Montezuma's revenge because the conquistadors burned him out,
exactly,
and massacred him.
There you go. So that's what it is.
It's payback years later. Side note, obviously, though, Cortez, who was responsible for that massacre, built a children's hospital, on the site where he met Montezuma years earlier. Little trivia.
Did he really?
He did. I don't know if that makes up for the massacre or not. You be the judge. But that's the way it all ended up.
Well, okay. I'm going to bring some statistics in here now regarding this, since you mentioned children. Vaccines are protecting more children than ever before. Again, I am not a huge advocate of vaccine, but in 2012, a lot of kids missed out on basic vaccines. Many of these countries that need them should actually have them. Poor countries are faced with many barriers to success, including shortages of trained staff and supervisors, the vaccines themselves, and reliable power supply. The result, each year nearly 1 in 5 infants, that's 2.26 million children, miss necessary vaccines, leaving them vulnerable to disability and death from serious infectious diseases. Again, you have to make sure that you are in the zone to actually have those diseases, or you can just vaccinate your child arbitrarily and do that if that's your mindset, but that is your decision. Low immunization levels compromise gains in all other areas of health for mothers and children. The poorest, most vulnerable children who need immunization the most continue to be the least likely to get it. Here we go. There's some facts for us this morning. 1.5 million children are still dying every year from diseases that could have been prevented by vaccines. That means one child every 20 seconds.
That's a lot.
That's around the world. Of the top 10 causes of death in those less than 5 years old, several are infectious, meaning they can be transmitted from one person to another. My kid just actually, and I don't think you can vaccinate against this, had ear, nose and throat, which is a virus that a lot of kids get, but it's very infectious, and we had to keep him out of school for 2 weeks. That was it. His preschool, basically. Because until the spots on his hands, because it's like they get spots on different areas around their mouth, around their hands, around the genital area, and it's an infectious disease where they get high fevers and sometimes have coughs, runny noses, and other symptoms associated to it. So you don't want to spread that to the other kids. If your child does have something like that, keep them away from other kids for a week or two until the virus has disappeared in them.
Makes sense.
Yeah, 1 out of 5 children is still unprotected against vaccine-preventable illnesses. Over 70% of those unreached children live in 10 countries: Afghanistan, Chad, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, India, Indonesia, Nigeria, Pakistan, the Philippines, and South Africa. So if you're traveling to any of those countries, there are these illnesses that are there, so make sure you kind of check that out before you travel. Approximately 29% of deaths in children under 5 are vaccine preventable. In 2011 alone, 1.5 million children died from diseases preventable by currently recommended vaccines. These figures are like huge. Polio remains an epidemic in 3 countries, Afghanistan, Nigeria and Pakistan, and has re-established transmission in Chad. So there are 4 countries that still have polio. Over 1 million infants and young children die every year from pneumococcal disease and rotavirus diarrhea. A large number of these deaths can be prevented through vaccination, but these vaccines are still too expensive for many countries to afford, even in middle-income countries. So it's just a little piece of information for you to sort of discuss this morning. Where's John Beerley? I want to find out something from John Beerley this morning. What's he doing?
I believe he's on the line.
Yo, I'm here. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, John. Good morning.
Good morning. This is our 94th episode, if my math is correct.
94?
94, yeah.
Really? I don't feel that old.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ethan. Dun, 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 dun. Actually, we should have one of those, those what are the jingles on the show, like
In
clapping.
6 weeks, we have to have some kind of memorial episode.
Memorial? What, we dying or something?
No, to memorialize our effort.
Oh, memorialize. Okay. John, can you think of anything?
I've actually had been thinking about it. I actually have been thinking about it quite a bit.
Okay, well, I'm going to be when I'm away, I'm going to actually be in Hungary and a couple of other places, London and Hungary. I'm going to be actually having to call the show in. So we're going to have to see what we can do about bringing some. Maybe my wife can't. She's got 2 kids. I'm going to have to get a couple of new co-hosts. I forgot all about that, Ethan. You're going to need to have somebody in here.
We can find them. Between the 2 of us, we can find somebody.
Well, we'll get somebody to co-host for us in the meantime, and I'll come on the line as well, and we'll have you online as well, John. John Beerley, maybe we'll get you to fly in and be the co-host, John.
Now we're talking.
That would be great. I'm just going to put that out there right now.
So, John, were you vaccinated? Are you still doing vaccines and stuff?
Not still. I'm one of those people who, if I get the flu shot, I get the flu every time. So I haven't gotten the flu shot in 10 years. I never get the flu. On the other hand, I know people who, if they don't get the flu shot, get the flu every year like clockwork. So I think it's just, one of those things that you do have to figure out what's right and what works for you.
One of the other things that's actually interesting is we talk about transmittable diseases. The flu is obviously one of them. It is transmitted by things that we touch every day. And cleaning your hands, I've talked about this before when I've watched guys come out the bathroom and they just literally walk straight back out again. I'm like, dude.
That makes me crazy.
Dude!
That makes me crazy.
Like,
Drives me insane.
And honestly, if they're wearing a chef's jacket or a restaurant
No,
jacket, then I report them.
I'd report them.
I go, I can't eat.
No, you
I
have
had
to
that
report
happen once. I said, I can't eat here because this happened.
Really? Oh, gosh. Well, I'd hate to be that chef.
No, I'm not going to sit there.
No, don't. No, you shouldn't. But, I mean, transmittable diseases come from even shopping carts. You go to your local shop, your supermarket, and you run your hands across all the stuff that we touch. And that's why washing your hands or disinfecting your hands with a little clean wipe is very, very important. I do it with my kids. I stick them in the shopping cart still, and we wipe the shopping cart down with the sanitary napkins that a lot of stores now have, and it will prevent a lot of these types of diseases. Do you have that a lot in your area, John? Do the shopping carts, do the stores offer that?
They do, which is, I think, it's a great addition, because that way you can wipe it, you can wipe the handle down, and you feel at least a little bit safer. Even if it's not doing any good, and surely it is, at least it's good for peace of mind, and I like that they offer it. We've actually even started to have some gas stations have hand sanitizer pumps beside the gas pumps, which is a nice addition.
John, do you ever watch that show Shark Tank?
No, I've not seen that.
It's awesome show. Love it. I love it. I watch it a lot because I think it gives you great insight into it, being an entrepreneur. But I'm thinking to myself, okay, who was it came up with the idea, you know what, sanitary napkins by a shopping cart? Do you know how much money those people now make? Simple ideas like that make people millions. They make them become millionaires, and that's probably one of them, because they popped up all of a sudden. So the companies that make these hand sanitizers, etc., are saying, thank you very much, yes, we will give you a royalty for that. So I think I kind of wonder about that when I see it. It's the same thing with I don't know if you guys have ever heard about this. Well, if you looked on sunscreen bottles many years ago, it was just sunscreen. Somebody came up with the idea. They said, I'm going to make you much more money. And he went to all the different sunscreen places, etc., and said, I know how to do it. He actually promoted it or patented it. Basically they said, well, how are you going to make us sell more money? He said, well, all you have to do on every bottle you said must reapply in 2 hours. So that basically means you're using a lot more of the product and selling a lot more of the product. The guy made millions just from putting that on the bottles. So I think there are a lot of interesting people out there with stuff. Let's get back to vaccination. Do you have kids? Are there any rampant things in your area, John? Do you hear about anything in your area of the world?
Not particularly that I would call rampant. I know that we are. Indiana and Kentucky are both on the list for the CDC of states where you need to be washing your hands in preparation, I guess, for Ebola. They were just talking this morning about how there's a potentially a second case now that they're keeping a close eye on in Dallas, Texas, and wow. It's a scary thing. It's one of those things where we've heard for years that it's never going to show up over here, and now it is here, and it's not something I think obviously people shouldn't be panicked about, but it's a good reason for people to become aware of how simple it is to wash your hands and just be mindful, not only for your own health but for the health of people around you.
You can contain it and you can treat it, but it's going to travel by way of the airlines, I think.
Yeah,
that's always the same thing. They said the AIDS virus. That was one of the things they said. It was spread via airline. What is Ebola? Here we go. It's an infectious and generally fatal disease marked by fever and several internal bleeding spread through contact with infected body fluids by a filovirus. It's like, I'm just looking at 3,000 cases of people have died of it in around the world, mainly in West Africa. In actual fact, what is it? How do you spread it, and who's at risk? Is one of the questions here. It's described as a group of viruses that it creates hemorrhage fever, and it's transmitted through contact with blood or secretions from an infected person, either directly or through contaminated surfaces, needles, or medical equipment. a patient is not contagious until he or she starts showing signs of the disease. So how do you figure that out? I mean, that could, interesting. The disease actually got its name from the Ebola River in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is near the site of one of the first outbreaks. The virus was first reported in 1976 in two almost simultaneous outbreaks in Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. It killed 151 and 280 people respectively. So something to think about here, I think. John, let's talk about before we get on to other things. There are other organisations making a difference in and you can get information regarding vaccinations. Sabin Vaccine Institute, www.sabin.org. Their mission is to reduce needless human suffering from vaccine-preventable and neglected tropical diseases. The UNICEF, obviously, we've talked about before, unicef.org. The world's largest buyer of vaccine provides immunization for more than 1/3 of the world's children. In the US, Vaccines for Children program is a program federally funded that provides vaccines at no cost to children who might not otherwise be vaccinated because of inability to pay. CDC, we talked about their role a minute ago, Ethan, buys vaccines at a discount and distributes them to grantees, i.e. state health departments and certain local and territorial public health agencies, which in turn distributes them at no charge to those private physicians' offices and public health clinics registered as VFC providers. Children are eligible for VFC vaccines, are entitled to receive these vaccines recommended by the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, the ACIP. So you can check them out again, Vaccines for Children program, VFC. You can look that up and check if you are eligible, if in your area you can find that. John.
Yes.
Hero. Any updates do we have?
Oh, yes. We have two quick updates before we introduce today's Hero of the Week. The first is with recording artist Dalton Cyr, DaltonCyr.com. If you're in Thousand Oaks, California, this weekend Dalton will be a celebrity judge at the Ventura County Vocal Superstar Competition, the proceeds of which will benefit Britta Cares International, BRITTI Cares.org, which is an organization that helps children survive cancer one smile at a time. And also, someone who's done a lot of work in the medical field, Jack Andraka, JackAndraka.net. He has a new book coming out called Breakthrough, comes out in March, about his incredible story of inventing a pancreatic cancer detection system after 199 scientists told him it would never work. I mentioned Jack because he was the roommate last year at a conference in New York of today's new Peace Fund Hero of the Week, Rameez Virji. Rameez's website is RameezVirji.com. At age 13, he invented a new web browser and then just kept on inventing things, moving from technology to physiology. He has invented an incredible new invention that will, I don't want to say too much about it, I'd rather hear it from him, that will change the way vaccines are delivered, and we'll be bringing him on here in just a second.
Let's get him on the phone, Ethan, so we can actually talk to him.
Here we go.
Let's see if he's there. Always love the waiting, don't you?
Hi.
Hello, is this Rameez?
Yeah. Hi, how are you?
Good morning. This is Adrian Paul and Ethan Dettenmaier and John Beerley from Peace Fund Radio.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing this morning? Where are you calling from today, Rameez?
Not bad. I'm calling from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan in Canada.
Saskatchewan! I'm going to be up in Winnipeg in about 3-4 weeks. It's not that close, but anyway. Saskatchewan, okay. Can you remind our listeners how old you are?
I'm 21.
You're 21 now, okay. So you're involved in some really great things. Can you start telling us how your journey began?
Well, I guess it's a little cliche, but I started as a kid. My mom's a Montessori teacher, and I guess if you don't know what that is, it's a hands-on education program geared at, building creative thinking at an early age. Anyways, I had virtually no contact with technology for the first 8 years of my life until my family got its first computer, and I was able to channel that creative mindset that I built by then into using the computer. So I just started learning instead of games or stuff like that. So I think I started programming when I was 9, and I made my first little website when I was 10. So by the time I was 13, I created a web browser, which at the time ran faster than major browsers. So I really love the power of programming. I wanted to get the software into the hands of customers and everything, so I created a software and web design company.
Okay, so you and the idea is I'm hearing a little bit of feedback here, Rameez. I think you're on without a headset. It's causing us a little bit of a buzzing on the side. Do you have a headset?
Well, try to see what I can do about that.
Okay, John, are you there?
Yes, I am.
While Rameez is looking at the headset, can you just tell us a little bit about the non-invasive vaccine delivery technique? Hello, John, are you there? Hello, John. This is what happens with live radio, ladies and gentlemen. We have the glitches. We have the ability to change them. I think
John's online.
John's decided to...
Yes, no, Rameez's invention is something called Formulation V720. You can design capsule with an unmatched product benefit profile, according to the website at medicineforabettertomorrow.com. It uses no needles, no sprays, self-administered anywhere, anytime, no doctor or nurse required, with a very competitive unit cost and no hazardous biological waste.
That's interesting. Rameez, were you able to find yourself a headset? I think.
Yeah. Well, is this a little bit better?
It does seem a little bit better. We're not sure. Maybe it's the internet connection. But let me tell me how you got the idea for Formulation V720.
Well, I went to this program called Shad Valley. It's the summer entrepreneurship and science program for high-achieving high school students up here in Canada. And one of the main parts of Shad is the Shad Cup, where students team up to develop a product to address a need. And then they sort of create a business plan to support it. So our theme was to design for Canada's aging population. And I knew that my grandfather was afraid of needles, something called anidophobia, and therefore he didn't get vaccinated. And I also knew that I'd recently been to Vietnam, and over there I'd learned how inefficient the immunization process is in developing countries. So with all that in mind, I really wanted to focus on creating something to better that process. And I guess I'd just taken AP biology, so all that, just the basic human physiology was still fresh in my mind, and I came up with the blueprint for a new vaccine delivery method.
Okay, so tell me, how does it work?
Well, I can't really delve into the details, but simply it's a shell made of indigestible organic material, which it uses the body's internal digestive mechanisms to release the medicine into the right part of the body at the right time. So what this does is it stops the medicine from being deactivated by the body's primary defense mechanisms, and it allows the secondary defense mechanisms, the immune system, to train itself against the real disease. I'd like to explain it with a bit of an analogy. The vaccine is pretty much an enemy soldier with no bullets. So when the enemy enters our body, our immune system learns the best way to fight him off. So when the real enemy or the disease comes into play, our body's army now knows how to fight him before he can do any real damage.
So, in your experience, what's the biggest obstacle to immunization in the world today?
Biggest obstacle? I think there are two real, big obstacles, in my opinion, that are really important to overcome if we want to improve global health. The first one, I think, is ignorance. The world's population really needs to understand how vaccines and immunizations work, and I think more importantly, why they're crucial to preventing pandemics and epidemics. And I think the best way to overcome that is probably education. Whatever people believe, and I think this philosophy is pretty universal, people should really educate themselves properly before they form opinions. on things. In regards to vaccines, there's a strong anti-vaccination movement where people don't want to vaccinate against anything. And I'm not trying to push an agenda or anything, but I encourage them to examine studies and research pertaining to vaccination. I'm confident that they would change their minds at least on some of these vaccinations. And I think the reason this is really important is that vaccination and immunization, these are processes that are effective most when they're practiced by everyone. So if we want everyone to be safe from disease and epidemic, vaccination is the best weapon against it. And I think I heard Adrian and Ethan talking about this earlier. I think they were talking about how vaccinations need to be brought to a global level. And I couldn't agree more. Like I said, vaccination works when it's practiced by everyone, and especially in developing countries.
Right. So you also have a company called Big Tree World. What exactly is that?
Big Tree World is it's the web design and software company I mentioned earlier. I make websites and software solutions for small businesses, to authors, to TV show hosts, and I also offer free charity web design for nonprofits.
Okay, that's interesting. So what's up next for you, Rameez?
Oh, that's a big question.
It's always a big question.
I'm working on my computer science degree right now at the University of Saskatchewan, but I plan to continue developing both Big Tree World and Formula V720, but my eventual plan is to still be able to use any knowledge I get to innovate in any industry I can.
So I always ask every Hero of the Week of this. I mean, what advice would you give to other young people out there who want to make a difference, who want to do something?
Sorry, what was that?
I said, basically, what advice would you give to other young people who want to make a difference?
Well, I guess two things. First, don't let your age limit you. People assume that people who are inexperienced in the field are unable to innovate or come up with new ideas, but on the contrary, I think fresh minds can find ways to see a problem from different out-of-the-box perspective, and that can often lead to amazing advantages. I think John was talking about Jack and Drake earlier. His friend of mine, he's also, from a young age, he just challenged the convention, didn't listen to what people said about him being too young, not being able to do it, and he came up with this amazing, this way of detecting pancreatic cancer. So I just think that don't limit yourself. And second, I'd say educate yourself on everything you can. Make decisions and opinions based off of what you've learned and not what you've heard.
Well, Rameez, I actually agree with you totally. I agree in everything. You've got to make before you actually go out and buy a car, you check it out first. It's the same thing with absolutely everything else, that you have to actually get yourself informed and
exactly.
on absolutely
especially with
everything.
Vaccinations and things like that.
Exactly.
Stuff.
Exactly. Rameez, thank you so much for coming on the show. You're the Peace Fund Hero of the Week. I want to thank you and commend you for what you're doing. Hopefully we can get in contact with you again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
So there we have it. A little bit of buzzing on that this morning. Ethan's throwing his hands up going, I can't believe I couldn't do the... That happens sometimes, though. John, are you still there? Well, we have about 3 minutes left of the show right now.
Yes.
John, so any other updates you want to bring us before we actually have to go? Because we got, again, we've run out of time. I don't know how we did it.
We have too many great things to talk about. It happens every week. I'm glad that we have a lot of information to get out there, and you can always find out what we're up to by following us on Twitter and Facebook. We have two accounts, The Peace Fund and Peace Fund Radio, and of course there are new websites for the Peace Fund Games and Peace Fund Poker, and there's just a lot going on, and it's exciting to be a part of something that's actively helping kids out there and bringing you the stories of people like Rameez who are making a difference at such a young age.
I know. Actually, Ethan has something I think you want to share today, right, Ethan?
Well, yes. Quit acting like I'm taxing you so much. Just two things real quick. Of course, you should be at the Microsoft Peace Fund charity poker game. That's a big event, and a lot's gone into that. A huge amount has gone into the Peace Fund paintball down in the Oceanside as well. But two other things you may want to look at: our annual Christmas breakfast for homeless kids, December 6th, which is a event closed to the public, could still use some help. You can get involved in other ways, and you can go to GoFundMe.com/A Combat Radio Christmas. And November 22nd, we'll be doing a benefit/toy drive concert with many of the acts on our upcoming Christmas record to help get some toys for social services. We'll be posting that on our Facebook.com/Combat Radio, and you can have a chance to get involved with those things, if and around your paintball and poker permits.
And I think you owe me an apology too.
Do I?
Yeah, because do you remember about a week or two ago I said your date for your event wasn't on the GoFundMe site?
No, I don't know really what. I'm not exactly sure.
And I just pointed it out, and I think your web designer called me and said, actually, you're right, it wasn't. So actually, what is
now
the
I know
date?
you're lying
What is
because
the
I don't
date?
have a web designer.
You have somebody that's dealing with
November
it.
22nd is our benefit toy drive concert
November
for
20
social services. That's a Saturday. And then Saturday, December 6th is the actual breakfast. That is a closed event. I want to make it clear you can't just show up at it, but you can volunteer for it and you can donate to it.
All right. So thank you so much for bringing us all this morning, John. Thank you, Beverly, Shahara.
Thank you, guys.
And the rest of the Peace Fund team. Thank you. We are going to be bringing a great events to you. This week's quote in closing is meaningful to Ramirez, our Peace Fund hero of the week. It comes from the series Harry Potter. So there's a light one for you. But it's our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. This is Adrian Paul and Ethan Dettenmaier. We will talk to you next week.
You're listening to Peace Fund with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.